Friday either though.
Well, okay. Morning, Al. We are, we are down to 5 minutes, so. I was telling somebody, I said, hey, if they drop, just one less paper I have to grade. That's how I feel about that, so, you know, I'm not heartbroken. I'm sorry for her that, that,
She was able to do it.
now, so. I do, and I work all the time. I just finished grading the 8 a.m. classes last night, but it took a while. And I didn't get a couple papers, so I'm just like, Okay, give me just a second. We're gonna kind of chill and go loose. Say, oh, there's that wonderful wallet post. I'm going to post tomorrow. I don't have to be there till 9:55. I'm like, all right. I don't even teach them. I teach them at 10 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday. So that's kind of comparable to that. But I have two sections. I have one Monday, Wednesday, and one today. So I'll have about 16, 17 with me tomorrow. But it's, I certainly have this blown up quite a ways, haven't I? Shrink that. So I'm actually gonna cover a lot of stuff today, but it's probably not the best way to do it. Okay, so now I did not have time to go through and see who I didn't get papers from, so that's what I'm doing right now. and I don't know where everybody's from. Oh. That's good. And they're still coming in. Well, we're still, I think a couple of minutes early too, aren't we? And my son just texted me that, we have a group text in our family, that they're now considering Art Prowse to be the new coach at Tech, and you're kinda like, he knew nothing about what was going on in Brown. He knew nothing? Come on. I just find that hard to believe, that you could know nothing about that, so.
What was the reason he got fired?
Because the Baylor players were raping girls all over the place. And never being punished. Yeah.
I know they're considering his son too, his son coaches at Arkansas.
Okay, I'm just gonna say. So, you know, I would rather, I like the Just Bring Leach Back group myself, so. Okay, I need to send an email real quick, and, because I'm missing 3 summary drafts, and 2 of them are not here in the class today, so. That's not good. Hey, Post, if you're there, or, you know, or as we watch the paint dry on the wall over there. I will see y'all tomorrow at 9:55. I can't spell today. Okay. I'll be bringing donuts, so I know there are donut stores in Post, but I have to have somebody, that's a, 45, 50-mile drive for me. I'm gonna eat donut holes on the way, so I'll probably have glaze all over me. And I'll be all hyped up on sugar. I'll be just like a 3-year-old. I'll be like the kitten at my house. He gets up in the morning, he just races across the house. It's like, you're like, what? Can you not stop down? And he's black, so, he gives us something to laugh at. The dogs and my dogs, I have a very chunky dog, Dobby, and poor guy, he's, let's just say, he likes to sleep under the covers, and the kitten likes to walk over the top of him, and he gets upset about that, so. Let's see. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about the schedule, what's coming up over the next couple of, or the rest of this weekend and then next week, to get you prepared. And, the other thing I wanna comment on is at Newdale, I see quite a few kids on the compare and contrast peer revision board. It shows you never finished it. You were supposed to look at 2 other papers. So if you didn't comment on 2 other papers, I never get it to grade. So I can't give you any credit. So, you've got to at least make another comment. It'll be late, but that's better than nothing, okay? So, now I'm gonna come over here and show you. I actually have, they're just now coming in. That was no good. I talked to nobody in the classroom. All right, I'm good at that. I can live with it. So, I'm hoping I will start grading y'all's papers today. I'm hoping I can get through them and into my enormous section that I have on 9 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, through into Sunday. So I'm hoping, so I can get these finished. Then I have plenty of time to get the summaries done before the, summaries will go so much faster. They're so formulaic. All I have to hit you on is your grammar and your punctuation and your author tags. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I commented on every single summary draft. Everybody got comments from me. So hopefully, but besides what I said in class, so hopefully you corrected those things, right? All right, so Hey, New Deal, are y'all ready? I'm gonna repeat my point that many of the, several of the kids at New Deal did not finish the compare and contrast discussion board that you would get the extra credit for peer revision. Because you didn't do enough, you had to look at 2 other papers to get the credit, okay? So make sure you do something about that or you won't get any credit. Because I can't go in and look at anything until you finish it in the discussion board. Well, because we didn't have enough time to do peer revision in class time, I put it in the discussion board. You missed a few days right around then, didn't you? Missed a couple of days when we were doing that.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, and because, oh, hi! I will see you almost this close tomorrow, won't I? Are you gonna stand and hold it there all day? Maybe. That's Mr. Rathburn.
So we're doing on that?
It's in, you have to go back to the compare and contrast unit, which would have been either I don't know, previous weeks. It's gonna be between 7 and 8, somewhere in there, okay? That's where it was at, yeah. Okay, stay there, camera. Yeah, yesterday, we understand that there's issues at Post. We actually had a blue screen for them yesterday for a little while. All right, so I want to talk about the schedule. Here it is. We did peer revision on Tuesday. You did submitted the final, the summary paraphrase by last night. And if you didn't submit it, I've already notified your facilitator that it didn't come in. Today we're talking about strategies for argument. We're actually going to look in the textbook, and we're going to go over the apostrophe worksheet handout, but we're also going to be dealing with how to write a thesis statement, okay? Just so you can see what it looks like this. It's 3 pages long. One of my facilitators didn't hand it out to one of my schools, and I got on my school because they were not making notes on those pages, because I changed some of the stuff, okay? And so, I mean, really, they're glorified copy people for me. So, no, they're actually much more. It would be very difficult to teach this class without my facilitators, okay? But let's go back to the schedule. So what you see on 1029, submit thesis and major points to Blackboard, that is not there. Delete that, okay? That's gone. Okay? You don't have to do that by tomorrow. What I want you to do is we're going to go over how to write a thesis statement, and would like you to work on that. We're not talking hours of work. We're talking maybe 10, 15 minutes, okay? And come to class prepared, and if you have laptops, bring them with you, because I want you to post your thesis statement not until Tuesday into the discussion board, and then I'm going to work my way through them so that you can see how they're setting up their thesis statements. Because the more you see, the better you'll get at it. And let me tell you, when I went back to get certified to teach and then got my master's, I was never taught how to write a thesis statement. They never sat down and said, this is what should be in your thesis statement. Thank God Dr. Rude, that was his name, he was an awesome little man, and his wife was the head of the technical writing department. But once on the board, he wrote a thesis statement, and I wrote that sucker down, and I would copy it and just change the parts to fit what I was writing about. So you guys have an advantage. When I was in college in the 70s, wow, 50 years ago, okay, I could cry. No, I don't, I'm happy. That we were given a book and we read essays in it, and we were told to write essays like those. We weren't told anything else about writing. We were taught how to read an essay and understand what it was talking about. That was it. So you're actually learning that there's a method, and you don't have to be a great writer to be successful at writing. You might have to be a great writer to be published for fiction, but to write academically, if you know what you're doing, if you know how to organize, you know how to do that, you're in good shape. Okay, so submit thesis and major points to Blackboard. That's out. We're going to do that on Monday. See, it says thesis and points work. So be prepared on Monday. And rebuttal, we're actually kind of covering that today. On next Thursday, we're going to look at a model essay to consider that's on page 380 in chapter 16, which is argumentation. And then it says, on Friday, you're going to take a quiz over chapter 16, argument. The reason I'm stopping to tell you about that is because that particular quiz, you're going to need to open up the book and have the book open while you're taking the quiz. So I hope you got windows and you can move easily between them, because it's going to ask you specifically questions over the student essays, sample essays that are in that chapter, okay? So, and that's not cheating. I don't expect you to read those essays and memorize them. Of course, the reading was assigned like a week ago, so this is a bit distant. But we've got to get that quiz in there. We actually have one more quiz we have to fit in, too. And it's gonna be over revising and editing, which I forgot to put in 3 weeks ago, all right? So, what we're gonna do right now is we're going to look at the, strategies for argument in your textbook. Let's see, which I think I have open. Yes, I do. There it is. No, that's, yeah. So I'm just in, it doesn't matter what section I go into, it's always the same book for me. So when I open it up, what's gonna happen very nicely for you guys is it's gonna show you where the student essays are, what page number they're on, okay? So this is the student essays. They begin on page 370, make a note somewhere. 370, student essays, chapter 16, page 370. So when you take that test a week from tomorrow, you don't have to try to figure out where it's at, okay? You're the first section I remembered to say that to, okay? Make a note. And it's not cheating. I don't expect you to memorize everything that's said in those essays because it specifically asks questions that go back to the essays. And if you don't have access to the essays, you're not gonna pass it. So this way you can, okay? And the reason I'm so aware that it's on 370 is because what I'm gonna look at starts on 367 and goes through part of 370. There's nothing better than watching somebody scroll, okay? That's really fun to watch on the screen, isn't it? I can just see why so many TV shows people scrolling through text on a computer. So strategies for argument. And so we're just kind of talking a little bit about your essay and how you're gonna write it, okay? So one of the things you have to realize is when you write argumentation, that you're appealing to logic. That's the main appeal. And so you need to be careful about what language you use. And it says, be tactful and courteous in your language. Don't badmouth the opposing side. It's not a political campaign where you're talking about how bad that opponent is, okay? That's not what's being talked about here. This means that you want to stay away from, and I've got it blown up so much, if I do much more, I lose a lot more text. Stay away from everybody knows that is so wrong, that kind of a statement, or people with intelligence. That's the first way to insult somebody, is to imply that they don't have intelligence. It's like saying stupid people, okay? So also keep the focus on the issue you're discussing, not on the people involved in the debate. The issues are what's important. And if you stop and think about it, there's voting next Tuesday, first Tuesday of November, and we're dealing with constitutional amendments on the Texas Constitution, and then some city amendments. They're trying to do all these repairs on the roads, and I don't know how many $1 million to put new bricks on Broadway, to repave Broadway with all the bricks. Yeah. They want millions of dollars to do that. I'm like, does it really make our town that much better to have those bricks? Having run 5Ks on them, they're horrible to run on, so they do need to be redone if we keep them, all right? So that's what's coming up. But you'll notice there's no advertising about anybody actively for or against those, except for the media. On the news programs, they'll talk about that. But last year when we had the political campaigns, they didn't talk about what they thought. They talked about how bad the other person was and their stances were wrong. So we don't do that, not in argumentation, because we're appealing to logic, okay? So, can't see. I'm staring at my 3 people in here. Oh, hold on. I don't need to count her absent because she's not absent. I was telling them that Kutsia dropped the class Tuesday after 5. So, and I know, did she look at yours?
Yeah, she looked at mine.
Okay, yeah. Well, you probably could tell from the comments, right? Okay. Yeah, it was a good choice on our part. All right, so be courteous and tactful. And they say, though, many opponents say or you wouldn't say, okay, let me make this smaller so I can see what it's supposed to say. And say, my opponents say that orphanages cost less than foster care. Instead of saying my opponents, say supporters of orphanages. It's about how you phrase it. If you want to bias the audience, you use negative ways. My opponents, well, they're against me. They can't be good people because they're against me. So you have to watch that. And then, so terms like my opponents imply that the argument is between the two of you, not about the issue. So you want to not make it personal. And it says point out common ground. If you are dealing with curfews, and I have a lot of kids who are wanting to do the curfew issue, this actually has a pretty good one. It says, there is common ground between opponents and proponents of curfews. And one of the reasons is you want to make the town safer. The cities, no, who's going to say, I don't want my town to be safer, I want my town to be more dangerous to live in? No. Everybody wants a safer town. You want a lower crime rate. And you want fewer gang-related activities, which mostly take place after dark. And if you pay any attention to the news in Lubbock in the last 5 or 6 weeks, it's very apparent we have some active gang activity going on in Lubbock right now. And it's not been good because we're killing each other. So that's not good. So if you can concede that you share common ground, who's going to argue that that criminals should be punished for their crimes? Yes, when people commit a murder, they should be punished. We agree that if we don't have punishments, then people will continue to commit crimes. So if I want to abolish the death penalty, I can concede that yes, there are reasons to have punishments for crimes, but I've got other reasons why we should abolish the death penalty that have nothing to do with the fact that we want to create a deterrent. It doesn't work as a deterrent, okay? I'm just throwing that out there. Anybody, I think I have one person who's writing on the death penalty, because I said, listen, don't try to make this big, huge philosophical thing that you totally support. Just get the paper done. That's, it's like when you go into a college classroom and the professor tells you something, if they tell you the world is brown, unless you're just morally and ethically opposed to that, the world's brown. The sky is green. You go with what they say, or you get out of the class. Because if you try to convince the professor they're wrong, you're going to fail the class. So it's one of those deals. Acknowledge different viewpoints. You do need to look at the opposing. We are dealing with counter-argument in this, but it asks the question, at what point, if you give the opposing viewpoints, it shows that you're a reasonable person, that you're willing to look at both sides of an issue. And if you can consider both sides, it presents you as being more logical. And remember, women can look at multiple sides. Guys tend to be, I'm speaking in generalities, they focus on one thing, right? That their side is the only way it's going to be. We are going to have those guns and we're going to kill those deer with semi-automatic rifles because that's the best way to kill a deer. Okay. I have a friend whose family are bow hunters and they compete in bow hunting. That's very interesting. But by acknowledging the opposing viewpoint, you are strengthening your validity as a logical arguer, okay? At what point should you do it? It says, ideally, they say you can do it in the thesis. I think that's a bit much. I would prefer that you be able to write a thesis that clearly says the death penalty should be abolished because it is not a deterrent, it costs too much money, and is unfairly assessed to criminals. I prefer you say that and trying to say, though many people believe the death penalty helps to make our world safer, it should be abolished. See, that's how I would do that. But if you don't have a solid thesis statement to begin with, trying to give the counter-argument in your thesis statement is going to be unsuccessful. I'll be going, what exactly are you arguing? Because I can't tell it. Because that's what happens. All right? So, and they give you a couple of examples of ways to do that. Although some students believe that studying a foreign language is a waste of time, 2 years of foreign language studies should be required of all college graduates. And I'm just going to tell you, if your degree is going to be in arts and sciences, you have to have 2 years of a foreign language. And if you had 3 years of Spanish in high school, awesome. They'll probably stick you in sophomore level college Spanish. Good luck. Because I don't know what your high school Spanish teacher was like. So I'm just warning you. But you might not have to. If you're over in business, you might not have to have foreign language. So be prepared for that one. Another example is while local TV newscasts can provide a valuable community resource, too often such programs provide mere entertainment at the expense of solid news. Now, I'm not going to badmouth our stations here. I don't see them trying to create this chatty kind of talk show vibe. Yes, sometimes they'll laugh and joke amongst themselves, but their focus is on giving the local news. Unlike the morning shows on all the major networks, Today, Good Morning America, whatever CBS is, they're all trying to create these personalities and that they're like a big family. They're kind of making it less hard news and more whatever. Like tomorrow will be the big day for the Today crew. They all dress up in Halloween costumes, and they make a big deal out of it. That's entertainment. That's not news. Okay. So I just want to send props since I have a former student who was on the NBC station, and is now in Wakeville, or Killeen on their station there, so, got a promotion. All right, so they say you can do it in the thesis, you could do it in your introduction, that's right in here, it says another effective way is to acknowledge the opposing viewpoint in your introduction. My preferred technique is to use a paragraph within the body of your essay to deal with counter arguments. And I traditionally prefer it to be the last paragraph before your conclusion, okay? And they talk about gun rights here. I don't know why there's a picture of a gun, because they felt like they needed a picture in this chapter, apparently. Arguments can be made. You can't use visual images, sorry. So when appropriate, grant the merits of differing viewpoints. You can actually concede a point that it's very valid. Yes, the death, people should be punished for their crimes. I'm going to concede that point. At what point does it not give you the return that you want it to give, right? It's not profitable, okay? And then rebut them. And really, that's all that's about, okay? And then that's where the student essays are at. So we'll come back and talk about rebuttal more when we get closer to finishing the paper. But basically, you have to have a draft of your paper ready for the high school kids the Friday before Thanksgiving. So that's because you guys won't be in school that week. All right? Remember, student essays, page 370. So what I want to look at now is the document on how to write a thesis statement. Is that it? I thought I opened something I didn't. Let me try that again. There it is. I did open it. Oh. Okay. And I am going to make some changes on this, so get your pens or pencils out so that you can cross off what I don't want. This is when I got upset earlier, and it wasn't the kids' fault, it was my facilitator. I hadn't handed out the papers. Okay, so how to write a thesis statement. Yeah, I did need to switch over there. What is a thesis statement? It is one sentence. See, let me hit that. Where's the draw? Let's go with a different color. Let's go with orangey gold, okay? And I want it a little bit thicker, okay? Is one sentence, okay? Usually it's placed at the end of your introduction, okay? See how I'm making the corrections? I can make this bigger, all right? Cal looked up and I could tell he couldn't see. I could barely see it up there. So a thesis statement is one sentence placed at the end of your introduction that describes the main focus of your essay. It is essential for an academic essay. In the writing process, it is the main organizing idea for your essay that helps you to keep you focused in on topic. And we've been kind of dealing with thesis statements in a way all semester. For your readers, it serves as a roadmap. Why did you disappear on me? How did I do that? For where you are going to take them with your essay. So, what it tells me as the reader, it tells me your stance on the topic and what you're going to analyze, how you're going to prove your point. That the death penalty should be abolished because whatever those reasons are. So before you begin, you need to know what type of essay you're writing. We are not, in a way, it is an analytical essay, but that's not the primary focus. Next semester, in 1302, we write about literature. Those tend to be more analytical. It's not expository or informative. I do not want you to tell me about the death penalty. I don't want to hear the history of it. Okay. I want you to come down. You can see it talks about cause and effect, compare and contrast. Here we go. Here's argumentative. Okay. This is the one we're dealing with. You will be making a claim about a topic and presenting arguments based on that support your claim. Based on evidence, I guess. So, all of a sudden, the terminology now begins to sound like CX debate more so. So the claim is the death penalty should be abolished. That's the claim. That is what is your stance on the topic. Curfews should be abolished. That's your stance. Euthanasia should be allowed in the United States. There's a stance. I'm trying to think what else is out there. I can't remember what everybody's writing on. Those stick in my mind. Okay. So that is the claim. And then it will give the main, so your claim, the main claim and the conclusion, and the main supporting points you will develop it by. So they give you a sample thesis statement here, and e.g. just means this is an example, so ignore that. It's not part of the sentence, okay? Axe utilitarianism, okay, I'm throwing this out there, the term axe utilitarianism is a philosophical theory, okay? That's all it is. So you don't have to know what it's talking about to understand the sentence. Ultimately fails as a moral theory because the calculation of consequences can be cumbersome, there is no guarantee of justice, and the greater good argument may be used to justify some behaviors that we intuitively would condemn as evil. Therefore, it cannot always tell us what we are morally required to do. The claim is, here's your claim, actually, lost it again. How did I do that? Fails as a moral theory, that's the claim. Okay? And the word because signals, here are the reasons why it fails. And A is, the first reason is A, calculation of consequences can be cumbersome. B is, there is no guarantee of justice. And C is, the greater good argument may be used to, goes on down, justify some behaviors that we intuitively would condemn as evil. So those are your 3 points, okay, that you're going to argue. The 3 body paragraphs would be that. And I would like you to cross off, therefore, it cannot always tell us what we are morally required to do. Because guess what? It says that up there in the claim. Axe utilitarianism ultimately fails as a moral theory. That's why you don't need another sentence after your thesis, because it states, it's saying the same thing. Therefore, it cannot. I had somebody who did that. I also had somebody in a different section who began their essay with a question and ended with a question. Never, ever end your paper with a question. You don't answer it. You expect the reader to answer the question with what they found out from your essay. No. This reader doesn't want to do any work. So if I tell you don't use questions in your writing, why do you keep using them? Y'all get my point? I've said I don't like them. I'm grading your papers. If you keep using them, it tells me you could care less what I think, okay? So, that's why I'm saying, if the professor tells you the sky is purple, it's purple. Then get out of the class if you don't like it. All right, successful thesis statement should be, the first thing is direct, focused. It should tell the reader exactly what your paper is about in one sentence. Cross off that or 2. Get rid of the S. Forgive me, once I start getting hot, I'll start coughing. It should be limited in scope. You should be able to make your case within the limits of your paper. You're only doing, the minimum is 600 words. I do not want 1,200 words in this essay. I don't want more than 900 if I can get away with it, because if you think about, if the minimum is 600 and you give me 900, you've done 50% more than was required. That means that's 50% more I have to grade, which means you've got how many more punctuation, grammar punctuation errors are you going to have in there, okay? It's arguable. People have to be able to agree or disagree. Nobody's going to argue about smoking is bad for you. I'm just going to be honest. Nobody's going to argue with that. And then supportable. You have to have evidence. That's one reason why I wanted, if you were going to go off of that list, I wanted you to send me your topic. And Alex did. She came to me and said, hey, can I do this topic? And I said, sure. Because I felt like there was evidence out there. That's the reason why. If you want to argue that horses should not be sold as meat products, there's a lot less evidence, okay, for that stance. I'm just telling you, there's not a lot out there. So thesis statements should not, these are all big X's. There's a lot of traffic in Vancouver. That's not a thesis statement. There's a lot of traffic in Lubbock. There's a lot of traffic in Newdale if you're on the interstate. There's a lot of traffic in Post if you're on the interstate. Okay. It should not be the title, Vancouver Traffic Problems. Your title should clearly state your stance. It should not be a question either. It should be the death penalty should be abolished. And I'm not one of those teachers that teaches coming up with catchy titles. A lot of people would go, death penalty. Let's stop doing the wrong thing. Someday we would come up with a colon and 2 parts to it, and just get the point across. And I should be able to tell your stance from the topic. And what do you think about Vancouver's traffic? No questions, no questions, no questions. It's pretty big, right? No. See? Okay, writing your thesis statement. Step one is formulate a question that your essay will answer. That is step one. That does not turn in the question as your thesis. Read your material closely, review your notes, and identify questions or ideas that you may want to write about. So here are some examples. How does the author use foreshadowing in this novel? That would be a possible topic in a literature class. It's not argumentative, it's analytical. What purpose does mitosis serve in the lifespan of a cell? That's more, I don't know if it's I don't know enough about mitosis to tell you. It's more procedure maybe than anything else. You're going to write a procedural essay. And what does this character's life tell us about human nature? That's analytical again. It's not argumentative. Okay. But I want to talk about questions. So really what that one's saying is you need to know what you don't know. In other words, as a person dealing with the topic, what don't I know about my topic that I need to find out? So you've got to generate questions about it. And one of those, and I'm just going to use the death penalty. So if you're going to argue about the death penalty, and I will tell you right now, almost every topic has some kind of financial money kind of facet to it. So when I'm talking about the death penalty, then I get one of the questions I might need to do research and find an answer for is, how much does it cost to execute a person who's been given the death penalty? Now, I'm not talking about, that's not execute. Before you can execute them, you have your first trial, you have appeals, you have possibly going to the Supreme Court, you have all these things going on, you have years, so that it's multiple things that are happening before you can put them in on the table and inject them with the poison. Okay? And that's also part of the cost. So I don't know how much that costs, but I'm just saying, when you've got all these courts and you have to bring in juries and you have lawyers, think about it. There's a lot of money involved, isn't there? And I'm just going to say, it used to be around $10 million to go through the total appeals process or everything for the death penalty. Whereas keeping somebody in jail for life might be about $400,000. That's a much cheaper cost, isn't it? Okay. So how much does it cost? How much does the death penalty cost? How much, and so I also have to answer the question, how much does it cost to keep him in jail for life? So there are questions you have to ask, and it doesn't mean, how can I ask questions about stuff I don't know? Well, who, what, where, when, how? So how much does it cost? How is the question? How much does it cost? That's one of those things you should ask yourself about your topic. Do curfews, I got to get the grammar correct. Do curfews involve any kind of monetary feature? Yes, they do. If you have a curfew, and I was talking with Jose from O'Donnell, and they have a curfew in O'Donnell. It's 11 on the weeknights and midnight on the weekends. They have one cop in town. That's pretty hard to enforce a curfew if you've only got one officer in town. So to be effective, truly effective, you're going to need at least two. Because the guy's got to sleep at some point in time, right? Okay. So there is an economic cost, and the cost might be how much can be saved in theft, damages to property, things like that. So there tends to be an economic factor about almost every topic issue. Okay. So think, what kind of costs are involved in my topic? That's one thing to look at. And if you're talking about celebrities being paid too much or athletes being paid too much, really? $450 million for 5 years to throw a football? Okay, you do get tackled. You do get advertisements. You do get endorsement deals. And it's so much fun watching all of the endorsement deals right now, just with the Texas Tech players. The quarterback, Shuck, is that how you say his name? He's got a deal with Cardinals. They've made a breast cancer awareness T-shirt for sale at Cardinals. I may go get one because I thought that was pretty cool. And the basketball players, and you're all like, who are you? But I kind of like that. I think it's fair that they get something out of, their likeness being used. I think that would be a good topic, but now they can, so you can't argue it. So step 2, though, move on, sorry, is brainstorm and write down some general points that express your ideas about possible ways to answer your question. Do some research. You're not going to be able to do this paper without doing research. And I'll be honest, some of you weren't listening well when we were doing the summary. I got a summary draft that had 5 citations, one after the other, no correct formatting, no summary, no paraphrase, no quote. You didn't listen. All you had to do for the summary and draft was give me one citation and about an article and a summary of that article and then a quote. And I went over that multiple times. So that tells me people aren't listening very well. I'm gonna be honest, okay? But you need to be doing research, so don't think you can write this at the last minute and make a good grade on it if you haven't. And then what has happened, I will get messages, and I'm sure I'll get 10 from at least one school, not you guys, okay? Saying, I can't find any information about my topic. What, can I please use websites? Why are you waiting till the last minute? Okay, and then step 3 is combine steps 1 and 2. So depending on the complexity of the topic, a thesis may be a single point statement. I think you're gonna need at least 2 points. 3 is better, good, because the more support you have, the better off it's gonna be. You know, if you only got one reason, the death penalty costs too much. Let's still kill them. They're bad people, let's kill them, let's get them out of this world, right? That's how people think. So, now we come to this document. This is what I want you to work on tomorrow or over the weekend, 10, 15 minutes max, okay? That's all. And yes, it's a PDF, but it's a lot easier to handwrite it on the document than it is try to go into Adobe and do anything. So what is the topic of your essay? The death penalty should be abolished. Curfews do not serve any useful purpose. Celebrities and sports figures are overpaid for what they do. I'm taking the negative side of everything right now. I'm feeling negative this morning. Okay? Think of a question. It's not a question. Think of questions you want to answer about your topic. Okay? All I'm doing is, because you need multiple questions to come up with those 3 parts. Is it ethical? Euthanasia, that's a topic about where you, somebody who has a debilitating disease that will kill them, makes the choice to commit suicide. But it's physician, it's, in other words, they're ending their life because it's going to be extremely painful, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it puts their family through a lot of trauma. And who wants to live through something that's going to be extremely painful? So, answer those questions. How much does it cost for somebody who has a major disease? And then the family's left having to pay for that, all those things. We're still paying on my husband's stroke from 2 years ago. It doesn't end. Illness is that gift that keeps on giving, or you keep on giving back to the hospital and the doctors, okay? Brainstorm some possible answers to your question, and then combine your best answers in your question into a thesis statement, okay? So what we're going to do on Tuesday then is have your laptops out. I'll have a discussion board ready. Hopefully I'll have it ready. I can throw it together at the last minute too. It doesn't take long. And once you've got them in there, we'll just go through them, and I will talk about them. I don't want to make it due. I would like the weekend so that I can grade compare and contrast essays and not have to look at anything else, okay? So that is how to write a thesis statement. Helpful? Because we're trying to get you focused so that you can write the essay, okay? All right, so now we're going to talk about the wonderful world of apostrophes, okay? They're so much fun. Let's see. I got to get in the grammar unit. How are we on time? Okay, well, we're going to go through this slowly, all right? That's the wrong one. I opened the wrong document. Oh, my head together. I do have a grammar unit that's in the 1301 section. Here we go, apostrophe worksheet. Oh, I blew that up a little bit. Okay, here we go. And the reason I deal with apostrophes is because we are so clueless as a society. We just throw them in. Often I will see the verb, the man runs away from the animal, and it'll be R-U-N apostrophe S. I'm like, what? Why have you got an apostrophe S in there? What's possessive about that? So there are really only 3 uses for apostrophes. And I was talking with somebody, I actually had enough time where I could have the schools do the work yesterday morning. I talked faster apparently. And I had a student who said, well, I want to put the quote in. I said, it's not a quote. I'm going to put the comment in. It's not a comment. It's an apostrophe. Okay? And so that's kind of quirky that we can't seem to get that down. So we use apostrophes to form the possessive of nouns, to show the omission of the letters, that's contractions, and to form plurals of numbers, letters, and symbols. Okay? So, the possessive apostrophe shows ownership. Something is owned by another. It says to see if your word calls for a possessive apostrophe, turn the phrase around to make it an of the phrase. So sentences that call for an of the phrase need a possessive apostrophe. So they give you an example. I can make these bigger now. The dog's bowel. The bowel of the dog. All right. The boy's car. The car of the boy. Okay. So if it makes sense like that, that's how you make it possessive. I'm tired of spinning. So, and I can look at that sentence and I can realize that, let's go with purple. That's a good color. Okay. That dog is singular. And the reason I know it should be singular is because the word bowel follows it. Dogs have one bowel. People have one bowel. Okay? Each individual person has their own bowel. All right? The bowel of the dog. The boss's report. So here you have a single boss and his report. So you have to decide whether you have singular or plural item being possessed determines what you do with the word in front of it. The report of the boss. And so they go on to talk about that. If your word is singular and already ends in an S, you can still add another S to make the word possessive, as in this sentence. And you would say bosses. If you just say, my boss report, it sounds odd, doesn't it? My boss report, that becomes an adjective saying that your boss used to be a term for something that was really good. That's a boss. That's a boss car. You got, okay. We're talking 70s. I'm sorry, y'all. All right, so now we come down and look at 3. The dog's bowels. The bowels of the dog. So when you see bowels down here, I lost the color again. The dog's bowels, that because it's plural, you can't have a bunch of dogs sharing one vowel. It just won't work. So that has to be a plural possessive. So it's D-O-G-S apostrophe. You wouldn't say dogs is. That sounds funny, doesn't it? So if your word is plural, then you do not need to add an extra S. You place the apostrophe after the original S, and it serves as the possessive. This one's just put a little asterisk, a small one, just here. Underline. For compound nouns, make the last word in the group possessive. My father-in-law's car is quite expensive. So I can see, you wouldn't say my father's-in-law car. See how awkward that sounds? It's my father-in-law's. So it's the last word that's made possessive. And it's singular, so. You would never say my father-in-law's, L-A-W-S apostrophe, because you can only have one father-in-law at a time in most of the United States. It's against the law to have more than one wife. Okay, doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it's against the law. Angela and Tommy's papers were really well done. This is to show individual possession by 2 or more owners. Make each noun, make each noun possessive. To show individual possession. That says individual possession. See how it says papers here? So that means there was more than one paper. So it's not like Angela and Tommy wrote the paper together. Angela wrote a paper and Tommy wrote a paper. So if this is plural, then all of those words have to be possessive. I could have said Mike's, comma, Angela's, comma, and Tommy's papers were really well done. But because it says papers. Okay. Now the next one says Angela and Tommy's house is lovely. This is to show joint possession. Make only the last noun possessive. So, Angela and Tommy's house is lovely. That way I know they live in it together and they own it together. Okay? So, here's the other thing. The possessive form of personal pronouns do not need apostrophes. Her car is possessive. His wife, their alcohol. I don't know why I picked alcohol this morning. Just to know that if you go to we were at the Buddy Holly Center on Tuesday night. It's a beautiful building. Ran into Miss Carver and Miss Bean from New Deal while we were there seeing Amy Grant. And I thought I ran into people that I know. And then I posted pictures on it, and I had all my neighbors like, we were there. Yeah. It's a very cool building if you get a chance to go in it. It's got this awesome spiral staircase. If you've ever seen the original Men in Black, and Will Smith, at the very beginning, he's chasing that alien around that place, and he runs around it like this. It's got that kind of a spiral staircase. It's just not as quite as wide as that one. It's a very neat place. Very, very cool. And an awesome concert. okay? So the omission of letters and contractions. This type of apostrophe indicates that letters or words are missing. So we've got that. It is, it has, it's, I would, I will not, I am. So those are contractions. The one I want to focus on is down here, would have, not have. This is a very much a Texas thing going on here. Okay, at least for me, it's always been that when students write the word would, they are hearing, what happens is you've heard this, would've. VE, when you contract have, sounds like would've, could've, should've. So it doesn't just happen with would've, it also happens with could've and should've. So my point would be, don't use, watch out for this. If you see any of these words followed by the word of, that's wrong. Okay, this is one of those quirky things. All right, let's go back over here. To distinguish between it's and it is. It is the possessive form of it and does not need an apostrophe. It's is the contraction. And so what I'm going to say, when you're dealing with it's, if you write a sentence and you've used the word its in it, read the sentence as if it were the contraction. So if I say, it's a beautiful morning, if I go, it is a beautiful morning, see if I've written its, I'm going to say, it is a beautiful morning. That makes sense, doesn't it? But if I say, its tail was run over, if I say, its tail was run over, that doesn't make sense. So if it doesn't make sense, it should not have contraction. Leave the apostrophe out. If it does make sense, its tail was run over, it makes sense that way, the tail of whatever animal. Then, you see what I'm saying? So if it doesn't make sense, don't you put the apostrophe. If it does make sense, put the apostrophe in with it. That's the easiest way I can think of to tell you how to do it. But you have to go back and read the sentence and do that actually on your part, okay? So, we're going to fly through here now and talk about plurals of numbers, letters, and symbols. Basically, if it's a number, if you want to talk about many 80s and 90s were made on the test, it's 80 apostrophe S, 90 apostrophe S. But you do not use apostrophe S when you're talking about years or decades. So, in the 1920s, it was called the Jazz Age. I would go 1920, no apostrophe, just an S. Okay? And that shows up, I see that error a lot. And then it talks about, I'm always happy when the students I tutor make A's, and the students ever use any ampersand signs, crazy, instead of the actual word. We're going to fly through these. I'm going to try to do all 20 myself in the next 5 minutes, okay? So get your papers out, be ready, because it'll go fast. Number 1 is incorrect. The word these sometimes will signal singularity. Leaves doesn't help us, because plants don't just have one leaf, do they? So it's going to be T apostrophe S. Sorry. It's being cranky with me. The clock hands seem to move as slower, that's correct. The president-in-chief's car, it's possessive. The car of the president-in-chief, so it's got to be apostrophe S. The next one is the president-in-chief's bodyguard was in the car. You only ever have one president-in-chief at a time, so that S is incorrect. And again, it's singular, so, because you only ever have one president-in-chief. So it's going to be a singular possessive. I would have gone to the show, but it was playing too late, that's correct. James's book bag was found in the library. Get one of the S, rid of one of the S, and just have, it should be James apostrophe. I have 2 boys named Joe in my class. Both Joe's last names start with a P. All right, so we don't have to worry about the first sentence, but I see Joe's last name. And I'm looking, both is plural, names is plural, so this is incorrect. It should be S apostrophe. Both Joe's last names start with a P. And that tells me I'm talking about more than one Joe. You have to read the sentence and understand what's going on to be able to tell. It's a lot like subject, verb, pronoun, antecedent agreement. I wish John's grades, it's N apostrophe S. It's a beautiful day outside. It is a beautiful day. Oh gosh, I actually used that sentence, didn't I? That's apostrophe S, it has to be the contraction. My children's toys are scattered all over the house. Children is already plural. It's their toys, the toys of the children, so it's N apostrophe S. The email addresses were all incorrect because they omitted the at. It should be the at sign apostrophe S. The man was surprised when the dog's collar broke because its material was supposed to be quite sturdy. Collar is singular, so it's going to be G apostrophe S. And because it is material was supposed to be quite sturdy, that's correct. If it doesn't make sense when you read it as it is,
Your
then it's
conference
correct.
is scheduled
It's
to
material,
end in
is a
2
reference back
minutes.
to the caller. The weatherman said it's going to rain. The weatherman said it is going to rain, so that's, you gotta have the contraction. Lisa's and Eddie's cat was very shy. There's only one cat. They share ownership. Get rid of the S after Lisa and make it E''S before cat. Toby's and Juan's trucks were both very large. You have plural trucks, so you should have apostrophe S on both Toby and Juan. They both have big trucks. Now Toby and Juan are attending chemistry class, but they're going to the same class. It's only one class. So when you have a singular item and they share that class, it's just gonna be Juan, apostrophe S. My typewriter key always sticks. I find that funny because, by golly, we don't have typewriter keys, we have keyboards. And if they stick, you're a sloppy eater. It won't type any G's, it should be G apostrophe S. She wasn't allowed to go to the party due to her poor grades. Never have an apostrophe after the word, okay? When you're contracting, it should be between the N and the T. The actor's wardrobe was very stylish. Wardrobe is singular, so it's only gonna be a single actor, so it's gonna be R apostrophe S. My apostrophes are getting worse, sorry. And the producer's parking spaces were all at the front of the studio. We're talking about multiple spaces, so it's gotta be multiple producers, so it goes after the S. Have a great weekend. Work on thesis statements. Okay? Woo.
And when are they doing this?
You're gonna do them in class. We're gonna bring your laptop and we'll put them in the discussion board in class, okay? Sorry. See? Oh.
Your conference is now over. Goodbye.
Y'all have a good weekend, okay? Enjoy yourself. And get a job. When will you find out, Kel?
Well, I went to a moving company and they got me yesterday, or 2 days ago.
2 days ago. So you should be hearing something fairly quickly.
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than
Do you know anybody there at the company?
later. No, I worked at Domino's for a bit, like a couple weeks ago, and
That was not your jam.
that wasn't my jam. There was just a lot of putting miles on my truck.
Oh, you were delivering.
Wait, which Domino's is look at?
The one on, 87.
87?
Yeah.
87 or 87?
Highway 87.
87.
Oh, 87.
Yeah, it was down.
Yeah. 87, if you say 87, but we think you're talking about street.
Oh, okay, oh, yeah.
87 street.
See, I have no idea, like, I'm still learning the streets.
Well, it's alphabetical and linear.
Yeah,
It's alphabetical north and south, it's linear.
Right.
That's just something to do.
yeah, I'm just learning.
Except for areas where it's not like that, okay?
Right.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Yes, ma'am, me too.
Bye-bye.
Today, missed, you talking about, what's it called? You had to like grade 2 people's papers and then what?
What, who, where, what?
Because I missed, those 2 days we had work.
Oh, where we did peer revision on the comparing contrast. Don't say.
Like, what am I supposed to do about that then? Like,
Well, when you miss that,
mm-hmm.
it's hard to make it up, because the paper's already done. All right, let me show my email real quick, I got an email from somebody. Oh, well, it must not be in, oh. It helps if I get into the right thing. Oh, okay. Mr. Wright, I had one that gets a post not turning your paper, so you have to let him know.
I know, that sounds like, so you have to grade 2 people, so I was like, I missed out.
No, you were supposed to do peer revision of 2 other papers.
Oh, okay.
And it was in a discussion board, because I had to change the schedule, because we needed more time on comparing contrast. So, making that up, it's only gonna cost you 12.5 points, it's not that much of a lot. You did turn in a draft, right, of your paper? Comparing contrast,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
So you got credit on your draft.
Then, like, is it cool if I talk about steroids then?
So, that's what you're gonna argue, that they're bad or they're good? I don't wanna know about them, okay?
Yeah, they're bad. Because
Okay.
a lot of,
But you're gonna have to
High
come up with,
traffic.
what are the if you're gonna say,
Yeah.
athletes should not be using steroids because of blah, 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 blah.
yeah, I was thinking about, like, because I think there are some deaths if you use it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about that. And then, I know there are some good things about it, so I'm gonna be talking about, like, that, like, I guess, at my third paragraph, because they use it in hospitals.
Oh, yeah, well, steroids are
like,
used
for
particularly,
like cancer and all?
well, and also in people who are with lung